Well, we will get Toronto's home sales data for January next week. But while we await that data, Right At Home Realty, which owns property.ca and condos.ca, says that last month they experienced their highest number of viewing requests since 2020. Does this suggest buyers are eagerly awaiting a shift in the market? For more, let's bring in John Lusink. He's president of Right At Home Realty. John, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So that really jumped out to me that you got the most viewing requests since 2020, because when I think back to 2020, there were some hot periods there.
There were. And, you know, what's interesting is that between property.ca and Right At Home, we've seen a surge in appointment requests for showings and requests for offer submissions. So I think this bodes well for hopefully a stronger spring market.
What is the sort of volume of listings like out there at this point?
Well, at the moment, you know, we're still, I think, struggling to see any kind of a balance. That said, I can tell you that at Right At Home, our listings are up about 30% year over year from last January. So, you know, we are seeing a bit of a surge, but that's mainly thank you to the condo market where, you know, there has been a softening in that area.
When it comes to the viewings, is that more so, or is it sort of across the board, or more so in the condo market or more in the detached home, or do you break it down like that?
We haven't broken it down like that, but it is across the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know, that's from Ottawa up through Barrie over to Niagara and out through London and Kitchener. So it's quite a broad view.
Interest rates are still elevated.
They are,
you know,
yeah.
so what do you make of it? How are you sort of interpreting this behavior?
Yeah, I think there's psychologically, I know that isn't, you know, perhaps statistically relevant, but I think just the fact that there may be a rate cut and anticipated for April going forward. And, you know, I think that there's buyers that have been sitting on the sideline, sellers who are also waiting, and so there's been a bit of a stalemate. But I think, you know, we're anticipating a stronger push into the spring market.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not spring yet. It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't feel like spring.
Right.
That's for sure. But it does sort of. If you take a look at, I mean, just those numbers from Vancouver. Really seem to reflect that people are ready to get back out there. So do you think that that's something that could be sustainable, or that we might see sort of this pent up demand and then, okay, there were some people waiting on the sidelines who, I mean, maybe they were able to save a little bit extra or whatever these past couple of years, or they need to make the move and they've been waiting to do that or something. It's always so personal, but that sort of pent up demand and then it's kind of out of the system, or how are you sort of imagining it might play out?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's an interesting point, because last year, of course, we saw the same sort of surge, and the sustainability is the question. I think in this case, you know, what's a little troubling is the number of insolvencies that we're seeing, in particular proposals. You know, and so I think we saw the highest number in Ontario recently, and that's a little troubling because obviously those are the people who can or can't afford, as the case may be, you know, to move forward with a home purchase. So I'm not sure about the sustainability at this stage.
Are you seeing any sort of distress showing up in what you're tracking, though? Are people, or even hearing anecdotally that people are feeling the pressure and that they're needing to make a move because they have to?
Not really to the extent that, you know, we might have thought, which is interesting, because I think the lenders have gone to great lengths to do whatever they can to help homeowners. So, you know, that hasn't happened. Where we have seen a certain amount of, I won't call it distress, but, you know, buyers losing out on their deposits, et cetera, is in the pre-con and condo world. So that we have seen a dramatic increase in buyers not being able to close, quite frankly.
So, and does that tend to be more investors that are doing that rather than the sort of end user?
Yes, yeah, you're correct. It is more investors, and so, you know, that's having an impact on that market and is having an impact, obviously, on valuation.
Yeah, I wonder what sort of an impact that could have longer term too. I don't know if that sort of plays out in a way where if there isn't that demand for those pre-construction units, then I mean, well, as long as somebody buys it, the developer is, you know, covered. But you know, does that change the sort of equation for developers if that demand wavers?
Well, I think to their credit, you know, a number of developers have held back on you know, moving forward with their you know, offerings, and so, you know, they'll pull back and the market will sort itself out. And, you know, I think that's what we'll see eventually.
It's so interesting, you know, trying to track the real estate market and trying to have an idea of where it's going, because when you look back at 2023, I don't think that was really expected to see that pickup in the spring market. So it's it almost has the sense of, you know, you have to expect the unexpected when you're trying to look ahead at this sort of thing, doesn't it? That's
absolutely correct. It's almost impossible to predict. And as you know, the statistics that are presented by whether it's associations or ourselves, quite frankly, are lagging and, you know, backward looking. And so the forecasting is the challenge.
Yeah, the